Welcome to the Captain's Quarters Podcast, episode 140. And as you can see, we have a new face on our page there. That's Oliver, and he's our guest tonight. He's also our blacksmith when we do Old City Pirate Day here in February, coming up in 2024. But he took a trip to the old country, and we're going to use that as part of our guesting tonight. He will be there, but he's going to sit here with us, and if he has comments to make about anything else we're doing, well, he's free to be a part of us. Welcome, Oliver.
Thanks for having me aboard, Captain. Appreciate it.
You're very welcome, very welcome. And of course, everybody knows Mr. Davey Longwood, the ship's navigator. Can't do anything without Davey over there on the helm of the ship. And it looks like we've got plenty of people popping in now. That makes me happy. I do want to say thanks goodness, Mr. Jim. You're back with all of us. And I saw your note that you got a new heart valve. And so we're in good spirits that you are back in with us and back on the show. Thank goodness for your health. Keep it up. We don't want to be having any problems there. And a cheer to you. I'll drink your rum though, okay? Let's see. Davey, how do we always let everybody know about the show? YouTube, ladies and gentlemen, Captain's Quarters Podcast. This is our 140th episode on YouTube. Use that QR code if you want. Find us, like us, follow us, subscribe to us. That's important. And keep up making our numbers good and strong as we go along. I just met somebody this past weekend in the Pirate Museum who is a promoter for podcasts. I hadn't even told Davey this yet, and I have her card, and we're going to talk. She lives down south, but she's interested in our podcast. Hopefully she's even maybe watching, or we'll catch it here soon, and we'll see what happens. Maybe we'll get some more. It's always about promotion, ladies and gentlemen. So please, we become stronger with the more people we have. That means you must like us, you must subscribe to us, and you must follow us. On that note, boy, look at the people popping in. Very good, very good. So our biggest sponsor, our number one sponsor, pop that one back down, is Pirate and Treasure Museum. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we always like to bring them up first as our major sponsor of the show. And ladies and gentlemen, I do want to let you know that now, starting this week through the rest of the summer, I will be doing public tours in the museum every Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. 4 tours a day, 10:30, 12, 1:30, and 3. But sometimes those times can be skewed a bit, because we do have some summer schools that come in and take summer camp tours of the museum. So the times could be a little bit skewed. But at least, I am doing 16 tours, public tours. You've got family coming in from out of town, or you're coming to visit from out of town, come to the Pirate and Treasure Museum Thursday, Friday, Saturday, or Sunday, and catch one of my tours. I'd love to have you there. Now you can put the other one up, David. 8 Bells is always sponsored by our good friends, the Rikers family of reenactors. They do Spanish, they do British, and they do pirate. They also do medieval too. I do know that, and I always wonder why I keep forgetting that, but they do medieval family times too. And they have the equipment to do it all. Plus, they are wonderful, wonderful partners in Mayhem's Traveling Nautical Museum. I appreciate their work there. On that note, how many 8 Bells do we have tonight, Davey?
6.
6. And of course, I said last week I should see them ahead of time so I don't fumble the words, but I hadn't had time to do that. So you get what you get. Willie Howard Mays. I had heard this. Yep. The Say Hey Kid was an American professional baseball center fielder who played 23 seasons in the Major League Baseball from 1951 to 1973. Widely regarded as one of the greatest players of all time, Mays was a five-tool player who began his career in the Negro Leagues, playing for the Birmingham Black Barons, and spent the rest of his career in the National League, playing for the New York, San Francisco Giants, and the New York Mets. He was 93 years old. They were having a game at that field in Birmingham. That is, I was listening to some of it on the radio, ladies and gentlemen. The field in Birmingham, and I can't remember the name of the field, It is one of only 5 of the fields left from the National Negro League play baseball games back in the day. Robert A. Dressler was an American lawyer and politician. His most prominent public office was mayor of Fort Lauderdale, Florida from 82 to 86. Dressler was the first elected mayor of Fort Lauderdale in 82, as the first directly elected mayor in the city's history. Up until his election, mayors had been appointed by the city commission from among their elected members. He was reelected to a second 3-year term in 85, and he was 78 years old. Donald McNichols Sutherland. Oh man, I didn't know this one. Donald Sutherland, a Canadian actor in a film career spanning over 7 decades. Sutherland received numerous accolades, including a Primetime Emmy Award and 2 Golden Globe Awards. He is cited as one of the best actors never to have received an Academy Award nomination, but received an Academy Honorary Award in 2017. Sutherland rose to fame after starring in films such as The Dirty Dozen, MASH, Kelly's Heroes. He was subsequently starred in many films, both in leading and supporting roles, including Clute, Animal House, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, Backdraft, JFK. More recently, Sutherland portrayed President Snow in the Hunger Games franchise. He was 88 years old. Wow. Anthea Silbert, an American film producer and costume designer who was active during the modern era of American film. She was nominated twice for the Academy Awards for Best Costume Design, first at the 47th Academy Awards for Chinatown, and then at the 50th award for her work on Julia. At the 7th Annual Costume Designers Guild Award in 2005, Silbert was honored receiving the Lacoste Career Achievement Award for film. She was 84 years old. Peter B. Gillis, an American comic book writer best known for his work at Marvel Comics and First Comics in the mid-1980s, including the series Strike Force, Morituri, and the digitally drawn comic series Shatter. His first published comic stories was Saturday Night Fury and Captain America number 224. He then wrote various issues of Marvel 2-in-1, What If, and Supervillain Team Up from 78 to 80. He was 71 years old. Russell Marash, an American television producer and director. Marash's many educational television programs, such as The French Chef, The Victory Gardens, This Old House, The New Yankee Workshop, are produced through WGBH and air on PBS. The Victory Garden and This Old House spin-off series, The New Yankee Workshop, were filmed in Marash's own backyard in Massachusetts. He was 88 years old. Very good, Davey. Very good. Sad to have seen Willie Mays and Donald Sutherland. But as always, ladies and gentlemen, we honor them with a toast and good words to them, their families, and their fans. 8 bells. And my son in Alabama just told me the name of the field. It is Rickwood. God, I'm not drinking. I'm actually drinking cherry juice tonight. Rickwood Field. All right, very good. Thank you, son. I appreciate that. Rickwood Field was Willie Mays' home field. Yes. It's also the oldest ballpark in the United States. Oh, that's good to know. Very good. Thank you for the help there from every one of you. Scarlett Deerheart, I see she's there. Captain Smoo is here. Nightingale in Florida is here. Let's see, who else do I see? I think I saw Zachary Harker. I sure did. And we have Blade HOJ, a new member into our YouTube family. Thank you all very much for being a part of our show. And Blade HOJ, notice he's got a star next to his name and highlighted in green. Very good. So, Joke of the Week with Mini Mayhem is always next. We need to bring it up from the 8 bells and have a good time with the Joke of the Week, sponsored by Salt City Comics out of Utah. Good friends out there that's done all of our great cartoons, and we've got plans for all kinds of more. For now, though, Joke of the Week with Minnie Mayhem.
Ahoy, mates! Minnie Mayhem here with Joke of the Week, sponsored by Salt City Comics. What's a pirate's favorite kind of exercise? Think about it. I'll give you the answer at the end of the show.
All right, very good. Davey, do you see the spot that Nightingale just popped up? Tommy O'Perry? Can you do a quick look at that name and see if we can add that into our honors there? As you're doing that, I will give you Spyglass Travel, ladies and gentlemen. Spyglass Travel sponsors our quote of the week. If you want a good walking tour of the oldest city in the nation and get history and exercise, why, you have to get Spyglass Travel to help you out. They can give you all the greatest information on the history of the oldest city in the nation. So I give you, ladies and gentlemen, the quote of the week by Spyglass Travel. There is no higher religion than human service. To work for the common good is the greatest creed. Woodrow Wilson. Oh, I like that. We do a lot of that, don't we, Davey? Momentary silence. Davey,
Yes, you
do.
Yes, sorry, I muted it. Yes, we do a lot of good work.
Yeah. All right, making sure you're not asleep at the helm. All right, we always like to do National Day of, ladies and gentlemen, and there are 3 National Day ofs today. And let's see, we're expanding that now. Ladies and gentlemen, the first one is National Patch Day. National Patch Day. Children and teens face enormous pressure in the world. According to the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention, 36% of adolescents between the age of 12 and 17 have reported persistent feelings of sadness and hopelessness. This is why we have National Patch Day, to show support for kids and their families as they navigate through varied journeys. That's National Patch Day. We also have, back one space, National Take Back the Lunch Break Day. Ladies and gentlemen, taking back the lunch break, it must be important. Each June 24th, North American workers celebrate Take Back the Lunch Break Day to promote workers' happiness and productivity. And the last one, my particular favorite, National Pralines Day. Pralines, yes. Aye, pralines. A day to honor confections made from nuts, whether in whole pieces or ground, and sugar syrup. Pralines may also refer to any chocolate cookie containing the ground powder of nuts. And it was originally inspired by early pralines. Let's see, French sugar industrialist Marshal du Praslin, 1598 to 1675, originally inspired the pralines at the Chateau of Vaux-les-Vicomtes during the 17th century. Created its first pralines made with almonds and individually coated in caramelized sugar. And there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. And that actually then leads us into the question of the week, sponsored by Ancient City Sirens. And we've got some pictures of Ancient City Sirens from this past weekend. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, Ancient City Sirens are the ones to do the dancing you need. And what is your favorite cookie? Since pralines are kind of like cookies in a way, we thought, what is your favorite cookie? I see Sky Jockey just jumped in too. Very good. Hello, Sky Jockey. So let us know what your favorite cookie is as we go through the show. And jump into This Week in Nautical History, sponsored by our good friends at Florida Water Tours. If you want a good tour of St. Augustine from the Matanzas Bay, then you want to join and call up Florida Water Tours. They have several small little boats. Well, they're not really small. They have two great pontoon boats, and I've been on at least the big one twice. And there's nothing better than seeing the city of St. Augustine and the Night of Lights from the ship. Go ahead, Davey. This Week in Nautical History.
Welcome to This Week in Nautical History, sponsored by our friends at Florida Water Tours. Experience the intercoastal waterway at its finest, featuring picture-perfect attractions. We begin this week in nautical history in the year 1534. French explorer Jacques Cartier is the first European to discover Prince Edward Islands, Canada. 1542. Juan Rodriguez Cabrillo set sail from the Mexican port at Navidad on the first European voyage to explore the west coast of North America for the Spanish Empire. 1658. French fleet recaptures Dunkirk. 1690. Battle of Beachy Head. French under Tourville beat Dutch English fleet. 1693. First Sea Battle of Lagos. A French fleet under Anne Hilarion de Tourville defeat an Anglo-Dutch fleet under George Rooke. 1704. First trial for piracy by the British Admiralty Court outside of Britain finds Captain John Quelch and 5 crew guilty, sentenced to hang the same day. 1756. French fleet conquer St. Philip's Castle of Minorca. 1898. Canadian-American adventurer Joshua Slocum arrives in Newport, Rhode Island, completing the first solo circumnavigation of the globe. 1905. Russian sailors mutiny aboard battleship Potemkin and sail for Odessa. 1917. Russian Black Sea Fleet mutinies at Sebastopol. 1918. Canadian hospital ship HMHS Llandovery Castle sunk by German U-boat off Southern Ireland. Only 24 of 258 people on board survive. U-boat officers later charged with war crimes. And finally, in 1959, Queen Elizabeth II and U.S. President Dwight D. Eisenhower opened the St. Lawrence Seaway, allowing ocean-going vessels to travel from the Atlantic Ocean to the Great Lakes of North America. And that was This Week in Nautical History.
Very good. And of course, we always like to talk about some of the things that have been happening amongst the crews and amongst any of our friends here going on. The first thing I want to share with you is our t-shirt project. Ladies and gentlemen, our t-shirt project has been extended to the 31st of August. Those that have already made their purchase, do not fear. We have kept track, and we're asking you to give us this time to really make it work through the summer. Again, you can get one of our t-shirts with our logo on it for $26 pre-ordered. The first 50 orders, we may be close to that, the first 50 orders receive a Captain's Quarters podcast coin, which I have here, a challenge token, and also all the names of orderees will be eligible for drawings on September 2nd's show. So be ready for that. There are the QR codes that you can use to pay for our t-shirts. You can use PayPal or you can use Venmo, whichever, and a small portion of each shirt that's bought, the money raised, will be going to the St. Johns County Humane Society and their Pet Food Bank program. So join us there in helping the food bank and supporting the Captain's Quarters podcast and getting the word out. We appreciate your support on that. Something else that's happening, or let's go with what's happened so far. Daytona Rum Fest. It was just this past Saturday night. They brought it back. It was a lot of fun. I went down there and made an appearance, sat there and had a couple of beers and talked to quite a few of the pirates there, sitting at Main Street Station Bar. And had my rum, one rum and a couple of beers, and smoked a cigar with all the pirate friends that I have down that way. There was a parade. There were vendors. There were a lot of pirates, that's for sure. And our own Miss Gina had her ship in the parade. In fact, she was the central focus of the whole thing. Davey, did you put all the pictures into a video, or did you?
No, I just put some pictures out.
All right, we'll go ahead and pop them up and see if I can go ahead and figure out what they are. Well, there's one we don't want to talk about. Hey, wow, who's that ugly cuss? But there I am getting my beer and my cigar on. That wasn't too bad, but that one's suitable for being framed. There it is, ladies and gentlemen, the ship of the ancient city sirens, and look at that. There's Gonzo standing there with the ladies. Good picture there. The Daytona Pipe and Drums led the parade. I could hear them coming down the street, and they did wonderful. What a good way to do the parade. Very good. There's all of our crew. Some of our crew. There's Miss Gina and the girls. Some of the girls are part of our crew. I see Nightingale in there. I see Miss Judy in there. I see Ed. I still see Bill. And if any of you were watching last week's show, you might recognize the one standing there with the tan-colored straw hat and the green vest right in the front. He was on our show last week. So that's a good shot. And there's Miss Gina standing at the top. What are they doing there?
Firing pistols. Oh,
yeah, firing pistols. It must have been the kickoff of the whole parade. Yep. Very good. Good shot.
Huh.
There's a couple of us. So first, in the purple, that's Ed. He's a good, outstanding member of the St. Augustine Swashbucklers. And the other one over there with the mug in his hand, that's my brother from over in Panama City. That's Ransom Mayhem from over in Panama City. Very good. It was good. They came over for the bit too. Good pictures. Very good pictures. Also, you got a poster to pop up there, my friend, for what's going on in Long Beach, California this weekend. Ladies and gentlemen, the invasion of Long Beach, California happens this weekend, the 29th and the 30th. It is also the induction of the newest nominees into the Order of Leviathan. And this happens every other year, every even year. So 2026 will be the next induction. And we've had 2 inductions in St. Augustine, and the others have all been out in California. I look forward to having them all back, hopefully in St. Augustine in 2026. But all the pirates from around the world, and one of the noted pirates from England, Rotherton, is going to be out in California. He was the very first European pirate ever elected into the order, and so he's out there. My good friends Robert and Emily Farrell will be out there conducting the directions of everything going on, along with all the other pirates you can think of. And if I were to sit here and name all of them, well, there we go. Bo will be going. Very good, very good. And it looks like, let's see. So Bo, of course, Bo's going because, well, I think Deborah's going to be out there too, if I'm not mistaken. And Deborah is from the Parlay 8 show and also being inducted into the Order of Leviathan. So it's supposed to be a grand time. I could not go this year because I had already spent my money on a cruise several weeks ago. I can't do 2 things like that. And keeping order in the family, the cruise was number 1 on the list. So we look forward to having them all in. And I'm also working on a plan for starting in 2025 to start featuring order members on the Captain's Quarters podcast. I'm waiting for proper negotiations and parlay with the order to make sure that that's possible. So thank you very much for that, Davey, posting that up. We hope everybody has a good time in Long Beach. Enough said. So, Davey, I guess next on the list is our guest, Mr. Oliver. So for those of you that know, Oliver is a blacksmith. He's been at our Old City Pirate Day a couple of times. Say hello to the crowd.
Hi, everyone. How you doing? Yeah, I'm Oliver Jones. I'm over here in Utah, Salt Lake City, Utah. Came out to St. Augustine a couple times, be a blacksmith. Awesome time, great people. Love hanging with you guys. So thanks for having me.
Where are you at? Are you in your home?
I'm in my home. I'm in my basement.
So in your basement. You have a stone fireplace?
I have a stone fireplace in my basement. Yeah. If it wasn't such a mess, I'd pan around. I made it all look like an old medieval little cave.
We'll catch you next time on that. It looks good in the background. That looks really good. Nightingale says hello, Oliver.
Hi.
So you went to the old country for a trip.
I did. Yeah, I had a wonderful opportunity while you guys were out on your pirate cruise, which I'm sort of sorry I didn't get to make it, but I had a last-minute opportunity to take a trip I've always wanted to take, and I got to make a 7-day trip in Scotland, and I got to do a wonderful personal tour around Scotland where I visited, 15 castles along the way.
Wow.
So I was by myself, so I was able to kind of just go at my own pace and picked a few castles each day, went and visited them, and it was absolutely amazing. The only other time I've been out of the country is Canada and Australia. So this is my first time in England, and it was just magical, the whole thing. Just beautiful, beautiful country. So
now, do you drink?
I do not.
Going to Scotland and you don't drink.
Yeah. So met a lot of people doing whiskey tours, though.
Yeah, I bet you did.
Yeah.
So did you stay in just little bed and breakfast type hotels, or?
Yeah, whatever I could find that was cheap. Like I said, it was kind of a last minute. I didn't have a whole lot of planning involved, but it was just each night I'd pick a place, bed and breakfast, or a little hostel, or whatever I could get that was cheap, and pick some castles along the way between here and there, and just went, and it was great. I loved it.
How did you make your transportation? Did you rent a vehicle?
I rented a car.
Very good.
So I drove a bit in Australia, so I was used to the wrong side of the road. So
yeah, when I was in Japan, they drive on the wrong side of the road too, and it takes some getting used to.
Yeah.
I think the only time I don't know if it affected you, but the only time it affected me is if I stopped at an intersection and then had to make the turn to the left or the right. I always ended up turning into the wrong lane, and if there was no cars there, that was okay. At least I could correct myself. But if there were cars there, then it really scared me.
Yeah, that is scary. I think that I only did that once, and luckily I was mostly in the Highlands most of the time, so it wasn't too many people around. My big issue was I was having to learn to do stick with my left hand because the only car they had available was stick. So I was wrong side of the road, and I was teaching my left hand how to do stick shifts. So that was fun. But I made it, no incidences. So
did you get a kilt?
I did get a kilt. Yes, I got a kilt.
Man.
I got a kilt right outside of Stirling Castle. We just had the Scottish Festival here in Utah last week, so I got to wear my kilt all weekend. So it was great.
Well, good.
So it's great timing there.
Fantastic. Did you happen to visit any blacksmith shops?
No, I couldn't find. I kept asking for blacksmith shops, but I couldn't find any that I could find. Had I planned more, I probably could have reached out on the forums and stuff like that and found some. But like I said, it was really kind of like, hey, you have this opportunity to go to Scotland for a week. Can you leave now? So it's like, grab the first plane and off I went. So that was about all the planning that went into it.
The excitement there is that you just took off and did it. Some
yeah.
people, they can't operate like that. That's pretty exciting for you to just jump in and go.
Yeah, it's kind of how I met you guys actually. It was Mandy was like, "Hey, we're gonna go to St. Augustine and see a pirate museum. You want to come?" I was like, that day, and I was like, sure, why not? So
and you haven't regretted it yet.
I haven't regretted it yet. So
here's the most important question: did you eat haggis?
I did eat haggis. Yes, I did.
And do you like it?
It was okay. It wasn't something I would love. I didn't hate it either. I kind of think of it as like the Scottish version of our meatloaf.
Yeah,
so.
But that's a good way to put it for now. I happen to like haggis. There is when we do the Celtic Festival here in St. Augustine, my booth and performance area is always right next to It's every year has been next to the guy that makes some of the best haggis I've ever had, and so he usually takes care of me very well anyway.
That's good.
And he's up in the Carolinas, and they do some Celtic games up that way also. So
nice.
If it's prepared right, he even makes a really good breakfast plate with haggis and eggs and everything else.
Yeah. I was hoping one of the bed and breakfasts I stayed at would have served me haggis, so I like some home cooking stuff. But no, I ended up having to get it from a restaurant just to try it. So
it's probably better home cooked. So
probably.
Did you trade off or give Davey some pictures and or videos, or what do we have to show off?
I gave him a bunch of videos. You're on mute, Davey.
We have a crap load of pictures.
Crap load of pictures.
I took over 700 pictures on my
I don't
trip,
have that many.
So I tried to trim them down to like just some highlights. Like I said, I visited 15 castles and I was snapping pictures the whole time. So.
And do we have video too, Davey, or just pictures?
Just pictures.
Just pictures. So I guess what we can do is we pop a picture up there, and Oliver, you're the voice. You tell us what it is and what we got. How's that sound?
Sounds great.
All right. So Davey,
I'll do my best.
There you go.
All right, so this is my very first day on my trip up to my first castle, Craig Miller Castle, just outside of Edinburgh. I had to take a picture of the woodlands just because they're beautiful, and the whole country looks like that. It's absolutely amazing.
Is that an authentic Scottish umbrella?
Yes, it is. It was raining, and I was unprepared.
All right, good, very good. Oh, Look at that.
So this is my very first castle I ever visited, and this is Craig Miller Castle just north of Edinburgh. Turns out during tourist season you need a week warning to get to Edinburgh Castle, so I ended up having to schedule that for the end of my trip rather than the beginning. So I ended up going here instead, and I'm glad I did. This was just amazing. So Craig Miller Castle is one of the more well-preserved castles that aren't really in use, but are still used as kind of like this is what a castle looked like. So it was an amazing. I don't know. I don't even be saying amazing a lot. It was just blown away. I've always loved castles as a kid. You know, that's what got me into the whole knights and blacksmithing and everything else I do. So
that's a great picture. That's fantastic. How old is this castle? Do you remember?
So you don't mind me referring to some of my notes here because I'm worthless. Right. It's built in the 1300s. So
wow,
one of the newer castles, we'll say.
that castle is set over 700 years old.
Yeah.
They just don't make them like that anymore, do they?
They do not. They do not.
Wow.
So,
that is fantastic.
And this was nice because it was pretty much intact. Obviously none of the furnishings or anything like that. It was just stones, but you can wander in and out, and I wandered there for several hours just wandering through, just amazed by it. But
you wandered by yourself? There was nobody there to tell you anything about anything?
There was a couple guides at the beginning, but when I was in the castle, it's by myself, unfortunately. Sometimes I would be able to find some tour guides and nestle them down, but on these some of these older castles, they just kind of let you wander around by yourself, and you can get an instruction book that you kind of like read as you go through. Some of them do audio tours, but only like the more touristy ones. So
very good, very good. All right, cool.
So this is just some pictures from inside of that Craig Miller Castle there. Just kind of get an idea of what how the rooms. This was Queen Mary's room, actually. She actually spent time in here. So Mary, Queen of Scots.
Wow.
So
look at that. That's beautiful.
It is absolutely beautiful. That's actually a different castle, but that's actually a different castle. That is Huntsman Castle, Huntley Castle. I always get that confused. That's the next one I visited, but yeah.
That's a really pretty picture.
It is beautiful. Yeah.
Those windows and everything. Now, back then, they probably didn't have the windows, did they?
They had windows.
Yeah.
So
that's a nice one. That's a good picture. Very good.
Yeah. So this is also Huntley Castle. This was the second one. So this one, this is kind of its claim to fame room. Those picture theirs are around 600 to 800 years old on the ceiling there. It's the only place in all of Scotland where they're able to preserve the actual like drawings on the ceilings, so you can get kind of really basic idea of what it was like back then.
That's some pretty interesting artwork.
Yeah.
Does any of it have any meaning or attached to families or clans?
Yes, it does. I don't know it all off the top of my head, but there are things like there's a depiction of several animals, like a dragon, unicorn in there somewhere, rabbits, and they all had some sort of meaning behind them. I'm still learning the history myself, even after I visited. So
now, do you have Scottish background in your family?
Yeah, I'm 25% Scottish. I got Berkeley's and Lindsay's in my bloodline. So, unfortunately, I couldn't find the Berkeley Castle, but the Lindsay Castle was closed, so I was able to visit that one.
That's an interesting look at all that artwork. That's wonderful, fantastic.
Yeah. So 1500s. So it was built in the 1500s. The paintings were from the 1500s.
So that's that's a long time.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow.
So there's like pictures in there that depict some things like typical Christian stuff. So like Adam and Eve are in there. I think the dragon represented Satan. I'm not sure about the symbology about the rest of it, but
very cool.
Very
nice.
So that's a picture of that from the outside. So that's Huntley Tower. Huntington Tower. Sorry, let's get that. Huntley's another one. So there's actually two towers, and then recently, like in the 1700s, they built the middle piece, which was that first picture that we saw with the windows.
And that's a 3 or 4 story building then too, right?
That's a 3-story building, yeah. So, and you can go all the way up to the top. There's actually a story of the daughter of the Earl at one time leapt between the two different towers to escape getting caught with her lover. So they heard her mother coming down the hallway, and she ran out the window and jumped to the other side. That's quite a drop.
Just like the movies.
Like the movies.
That's a pretty shot too. That's you got some good pictures there. That's a nice one. Very good.
I tried. Yeah. So this is Corgaff Castle. So now we're in the Highlands. So I did hunt. So I went north out of Edinburgh the first day, hit that first tower that we just talked to, the Huntington Tower, and then this is the next one I hit called Corgaff Castle. This is up in the Highlands. This is actually a fairly recent castle. It was built in the 1500s. So it had a much more of I want to say colonial vibe. I don't know what the term is up in Scotland, but kind of like this is where they kind of stationed a garrison of redcoats, basically. So the cool one about this one is if you get if I wish I had a better picture of it, if you get a top-down look, the walls are actually in a star shape rather than flat. Yeah. So I think I got a picture. You can kind of see how the walls are kind of a little different. So that was pretty neat. Not the best picture. But yeah, try the next one. I think if it's long, no, that's inside. So this is inside. You can kind of see the inside of a castle. But yeah, go ahead, move on.
So is this where all the whiskey was being kept?
This is where all the whiskey was being kept. I thought you'd like that one.
Yeah. Wow.
So, there's just a storage room in the basement. Yeah.
Now, were those barrels there just for the scenery and the look?
Yeah. So this one was actually fair. This one they actually keep up to date, quote unquote up to date. So in some of the other rooms, they actually had like walls of plasters and beds to kind of show what living was like during the time. A lot of these castles are being preserved by the historic, what's it called? The Historic Scotland Society. So, yeah. So some of these they're made to be like kind of, I don't want to say like tourists can come in and visit. Them.
Right.
So
are the castles still owned by the families of the clans, or are they owned now by the government or Scotland Historic?
So there are 730 castles in Scotland.
Wow.
Some are still privately owned. Some are still owned by families. So this is a shot they have some of the furnishings and stuff like that. The walls have a little bit more to them, just to kind of show what it looked like beforehand. And they have, wood floors and stuff. But yeah, so some of them are still privately owned. Some of them are just rubble. I went to one of those later on if we get there. But other ones are owned by this, like I said, the Scotland's Historic Society, and The first castle I visited was one of those, and they gave me a map saying, here's all the other castles that you can just pay once, and you can visit all of them as you go across Scotland. So that's most of what I visited, except for the really big ones.
If you wanted to go to all 700 of them,
you basically have to live in Scotland for.
You'd have to live there or have at least a year.
Yeah, just to visit them the way I was doing it. It'd be nuts. So.
Nightingale has a good question for you.
Yes.
Were any of them, here, I'll pop this up there, were any of the castles converted into bed and breakfast or hotels?
Yes, there are castles that you can visit as bed and breakfast and hotels. I was going cheap and I couldn't get into any of them. And like I said, I didn't have time to plan. I had planned this trip years ago that I was going to take with my wife. It didn't pan out, but I had a couple castles planned out to go and stay at that you could stay in as a hotel or a bed and breakfast. So,
if my son is still on board watching, William, didn't you take a trip over to Scotland also? If you'll answer the question. So this is Kildrummy Castle.
Kildrummy Castle. This was fun. I visited this right as it might have been closed, but we won't say that. So it was nice and dark, and it wasn't raining. If anyone has ever played a Dark Souls game, I call this my Dark Souls Castle because it's just the ruins and the towers were just beautiful, and I had crows flying around too. It was really atmospheric and fun. But this was just ruins. It was just like a wall of ruins is basically all this one was. It was big though, lots of space. This castle's been under siege many times. It's kind of a central location, or at least it was at the time. So it's been burned to the ground, razed, rebuilt, burned, razed, rebuilt several times over the century. Built like in the 1100s at least, or earlier. So they weren't sure. A lot of the history starts in the 1100s, but a lot of these castles, or at least something, was there, but way before then. So.
Oh, hold on just a minute. Don't go too far there, Davey. Look at this. William. Davey, you recognize him? He's the galley master from Captain Scallywags when he did our food for one of our events. He's now living in Spain.
Nice.
Well, greetings to you, good friend. It's good to see you on the show. And of course, for you, it's like, I don't know, 2:00 in the morning? Ahoy, Vindazio. Very good. Honored to have you on board, sir. Honored to have you on board. All right, back to our slideshow.
I sent a lot of pictures, so if you wanted me to move a little faster, I can move a little faster.
No, it's all right. This is part of what we have here. So this castle is the one that was built and rebuilt, the one you've been talking about, right?
Yes. This is the Kildrummy Castle. So
it's so interesting to see some of these and to know that all these castles had such activity during the time frame of, well, even at the time frame back to when the Romans were occupying the land.
Yeah. Some of them were just absolutely crazy. So this is Huntley Castle. Was fun because as I was going up the driveway to it, I thought I had already run into it, and turns out it was just an archway to go to a prep school. And behind the prep school, like right behind, if I had a pan to the left, there's a soccer field right next to it, right to the left. So it's just there. And so this is Huntley Castle. This is really fun. This was kind of like one of the, you call it the go-to spots for the high nobility. A lot of balls and events were held at this place.
In its time, right?
Not now. No.
Yeah.
In its time. So, and I think I took a picture of the ball. I sent you a picture of the ballroom. I'm not sure. Like I said, I took a lot of pictures.
Go ahead, Davey.
Yeah, so that's kind of like another angle from the back. You kind of see it's kind of falling apart. That central tower is more intact as you wander in, though. So you can kind of see what it was all set up to be at the 10. Kind of the time frame on it. Go ahead. So that's some murals that are very well preserved. Has the coat of arms. I forget the names of some of the clans that lived there. So go ahead.
Wow, look at that.
Yeah. That, by the way, in that far back, just to give you an idea, that is a fireplace for cooking. It's huge.
It is. That's way huge.
It's massive.
Wow.
I mean, that and the kilns that they, or the whatever they call them to cook bread in, they were just massive spaces. So it's like, how much wood did they have to burn to get the heat going? But
Wow.
I guess they were cooking for a lot of people, so that's where they would make their bread.
You know, another thing that really just amazes me is look at all the rocks in that archway.
Everyone was hand placed, one at a time.
And they're all placed there by hand, and it's just it's amazing. And I always often wonder how many times did they have to go, oh crap, because half of it fell down and they had to keep putting it back.
I don't know. Amazing. But whatever they did, it's been going. I mean, that's another.
Because they didn't use a lot of mortar, did they?
They used some. You look between the rocks. There's mortar between the rocks. So
wow.
something's holding them there. But yeah. There's some mortar there to hold them in place. It's crazy. That was a fun shot because later I went to a castle that's still in use, and I found a room that is exactly that same room, but it's all plastered over. It has all the plaster. It has floors and everything. So it's amazing to see. It goes from a man-made cave to what we picture in our fantasies about a luxury castle and stuff. It was amazing.
That's a good shot. That's a really good shot.
Yeah, so that's kind of like the entrance to a ballroom. The ballroom's over on that far side there, and these are kind of like nooks that the nobles would come in and hang out at. So,
a lot of safety railing.
Yeah. All right, so now we're on so this was just a quick one. This was just like a ruins, but all it had was the walls. That's all it's there. It's just the walls, and people lived in the walls. Belvine Castle. Wasn't a whole lot to say about this one. It was kind of out of the way. Didn't experience a whole lot of drama or wars, but it was still something I had along the way. That's inside. And that was it. People lived there, and that's the well right there in the middle. that's the front from inside, yeah. They would live in the walls, the actual like structure in the walls. So it's just amazing. These pictures just can't translate to the majesty of just being there and seeing them.
So here's a question for you.
Sure.
Because it just popped into my head. Did you see any graffiti?
No, not in the castles I went to. They were very well maintained. Like I said, most of the castles I went to were maintained by the Historic Society. They actually have like a booth out, a place where you can buy souvenirs and stuff outside of each of these places.
That's a good thing then. That
yeah.
People aren't
maintaining them.
Ugly, decorating, stupid stuff with these beautiful castles.
Yeah. So after touring all these ruins, this Crowder Castle is still in use. Like people still live there. Lady Crowder has a summer home that she goes to during the summer, and then she opens it up during tourist season to let people do tours through it. So it was really cool to like go from the ruins and then see a castle that was still in use and still being used.
Wow.
So, so that's a picture of it. So it's a little bit more, got a much more of a European look. The stonework's a lot more smooth as opposed to the traditional Scottish castles. You could tell which castles were built by English, which ones were built by the Scottish, because the English were very smooth and like this, and then the other ones were, the rocks are a lot more, I want to say like shell like rocks.
It's like looking at the architecture of St. Augustine.
Right.
You can tell the difference between which houses, of course, everything's remade now, but you can tell the difference between which is Spanish and which is British, the British time frame.
Yeah. Later, I'll show you Stirling Castle later if we get there, and then there's a couple buildings there that are really interesting. One of them, just like if you ever look at this, we'll get to that later. We'll talk later.
Go ahead, Jamie. Go ahead.
Yeah. So this, got to get a picture of a drawbridge, right?
Absolutely, got to have a drawbridge.
So this is inside Crowder Castle. So you can see the difference between this and the ones we were just looking at, where they're like, this is what they would have looked like with all the furnishings and the stone plastered over and everything painted.
Is that a wheelchair?
Yeah.
Huh.
Like I said, they live here, so.
Ah. That's beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Wow.
Yeah, go ahead. I don't have a whole lot to say on these ones other than just, hey, look, this is what a castle looks like when it's painted.
Man, isn't that something?
Completely changes it, but
it sure does.
Because you can see those the way the ceilings are all arched, just like we saw in that one picture that I was talking about with the fireplace. But that's what it looks like. That's what it looked like when it was taken care of.
One big giant tilt on the floor there.
Yeah. All right, so now we're off to the Isle of Skye, and that's Ellen Donan. I'm pronouncing that even remotely correctly. If you've ever seen a picture of Scotland Castle, it was probably this one. This is the one that everyone takes pictures of. This is the one that sat on my desktop for 15 years from high school all the way up until when. This is the one where they film all the movies. Highlander was filmed here. This was my first major tourist one. They didn't let me take a lot of pictures inside. But yeah, it's probably the most iconic castle in Scotland, and it's very well maintained. So
inside and out.
Inside and out, yeah.
So here's another question for you: were there any fees to go into any of these castles?
Yeah. So if you ever want to do a castle tour of Scotland, Historic Scotland Society, first castle you visit, they'll ask you to do an explorer pass. You pay I think it was like $60, and it gets you into all the Historic Society castles.
Oh, okay.
So that was cheap. There's a couple ones that I went to, like Crowder Castle and a few others that weren't ran by them. Those also required a fee to get in. So, but I think all in all, I probably spent $150 getting into castles. So.
Okay, and you went to 15 of them?
And I went to 15 castles, yeah, including the big ones like this one.
Well, so that's not a bad fee, and the money is for helping in the restoration of everything and the maintaining.
Right, exactly. So now this is actually a fairly new castle. This was actually, they blew it up. Like the inhabitants had to abandon it at one point, and so they stacked a whole bunch of barrels of gunpowder and blew the castle up to pieces to prevent it from falling into their hands. And then I think it was in the 1700s they rebuilt it to what it is now. They tried to recreate it as best they could. But yeah, it's probably also why it's used so much in so many things, because it has all the modern conveniences and lighting and stuff like that in there. So, but just a beautiful castle.
That's a big one.
Yeah, that's the same one. That's just from a different angle, from the backside.
Go ahead, Davey.
Go ahead, Davey. Is that it?
He's probably still sorting through some of them.
Yeah, sorry. I did dump a whole bunch on him. I felt bad. That is what it is. So Armadale, these castles, this is like the only castle I wasn't actually allowed to wander into. But it did have a really cool museum and stuff like that attached to it. This was just along my trip along the Isle of Skye. So, go ahead, Dave. And then this was later, but that's okay. This is at the next castle I went to is the Dunvegan Castle. This is another castle that's still being used. It's an 800-year-old castle for the Clan MacLeod, and this is their great sword. So I think I sent you a picture of me standing next to it, so you can just see how big those things are. This is the MacLeod Castle. This is the MacLeod Castle. The Dunvegan is the name of the castle, but it's the Clan MacLeods on the Isle of Skye. Go ahead.
Cool.
Wow.
No, we're out of order now, so that's okay.
That's all right.
That's all right. This was the just ruins. Like, this is the only piece of the castle still standing. It was just on a knoll of a hill, and you go up to the top of the hill, and this is all you have. I figured that if at any point during this trip, Faye were going to either send me on a magical quest or abduct me, this was the spot. This was out in the middle. This was just on
into another alternative universe.
Yeah, that's what it felt like. Didn't happen, unfortunately.
Great shot. Very good.
All right. So yeah, we're hopping around a bit. So now this is next to Loch Ness. This is the Urquhart Castle. This is another kind of really heavy tourist spot. In 1990s, they rebuilt some trebuchets, like the traditional way. So that's a 35-foot trebuchet that they built and used. I think I spent more time on the trebuchet than the castle because I like trebuchets too. And it was really awesome to actually see that. The stones right next to my feet, that's what it was throwing. So,
wow.
So those are 70-kilogram boulders they were throwing. They had 7 tons of weight on the trebuchet on the arm end, and they were hucking them pretty good. They had a video of it that's pretty amazing to watch. So. Yeah, we're hopping. That's okay. So this is Stirling Castle. This was my big crowding one. This is the one that I really is like. I need to go to Scotland. I need to see Stirling Castle. So with my I do a volunteer group over here with Mandy Brown, and we do catapult lessons where we talk about siege weapons and how they're used and how they're built. And one of the stories comes up is Stirling Castle because in 1303. The largest trebuchet ever built was used to attack Stirling Castle. Warwolf. It was 100 feet tall. It threw boulders that were 300 pounds big, and just absolutely decimated the defense of the castle. So I could do a whole lesson on that, but I had to visit. So Stirling Castle was amazing. It was a bit touristy, so this is kind of where you're having to deal with crowds and stuff. But the castle was just beautiful and amazing, and you can see how the architecture here switches between the smooth stone of the English and the rough stone of the Scottish as you look around.
So have you ever built one of those weapons?
Siege weapons? Yes. In fact, at the Scottish Festival, we were firing my 15-foot trebuchet. We were throwing water balloons and stuff out there into the field, so we were having fun with it. So I built a bunch of smaller stuff. The biggest things I built so far is that 15-footer. So it throws pumpkins about 200 feet.
I wonder if we built one that was a little bit smaller and we could start throwing things over at the fort from the pirate festival.
We could do that. It'd be fun.
That might be something to talk about.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, so these are fun because you see how the buildings are completely different. That yellow building is actually what Stirling Castle would have looked like. That's the color that the Stirling Castle should have been, or would still be if it was still going. It actually has, I don't want to say glitter in it, but it shines in the sunlight. So the whole castle used to look like shining gold from a distance. And this was like a small city inside the castle. It's just absolutely huge. Go ahead.
Nice.
And this is outside. So this is across the valley at the other side. This is the William Wallace Monument, dedicated, of course, to William Wallace. So, by the way, Braveheart, I've learned, is a completely no-go as far as historical value goes. But so,
wow,
that's me a picture next to one of their claymores. So, just
that's
to get
a
an
huge sword.
Oh, they're massive. They're huge. I don't know if I could even swing one. They're nuts.
Man.
So, and then this was the final one. So we're back in Edinburgh, my last day. This is Edinburgh Castle. So if Stirling Castle was a city, this was even more so. Is just, words don't describe how big it was, but it was also incredibly crowded. I did get to see the Scottish equivalent of the crown jewels there, though. So that was pretty neat.
Really?
Yeah.
What great shots you got. Some really good pictures.
Oh, thank you. I tried. Figured I'd take a whole bunch and then hopefully, but even these pictures, you can't, just being there, touching, feeling the walls, walking along,
right.
Seeing them is just amazing.
Wow.
Yeah, this was an all-day affair, just wandering this one castle. It was, like I said, it was a city. So
there was cool pictures. He could have he had more, but you know how we can only hold so many.
Yeah, it's okay. It's okay. You get the basic idea.
So my son asked, how do you have the Battle of Stirling Bridge without the bridge?
So Battle of Stirling Bridge was totally there. And you can see if you look between the Stirling Castle and the William Wallace Monument, in between them and there was where that battle took place. Well, many battles took place. So most of these castles, like I said, have been built and rebuilt and then destroyed and then rebuilt again. And then as nobles would move in and out, they would add things to it. So it's like, okay, Urquhart Castle, I think, changed like dramatically, like 5 or 6 times, including being blown up once and then rebuilt again. So it's pretty amazing that anything's still standing. And I actually learned from the Historic Society, talking to some of the people there, that a lot of the damage to a lot of these castles happened after the nobles moved out. The peasants would come in and just raise the castles to the ground to build their homes. So they would steal all the wood and knock down the walls, take the stones. So a lot of the houses in that are built around these areas are pieces of a once castle. So it's pretty neat.
So now I've done a bit of traveling around the world and lived in other countries. One of my favorite things that I enjoy and have good memories of is when I've lived in other countries.
Mm-hmm.
I've met the locals and talked to them and hung out and drank with them and had a good time. Did you meet locals or did you hang out with any? Or
so when I headed out of the bed and breakfasts, I always made sure to spend some time with my hosts and talk with them. I was traveling alone, so I didn't have I'm not a huge social person, so
right.
But I did try as best I could. I did talk with as many of the guides and stuff like that, and try to get some stories behind the castles and just get some stuff there. Wonderful people, though. I didn't meet a single person that treated me poorly. So they were great, wonderful.
Do you have any problems with the language?
Nah, no. I didn't encounter anyone that like went full Scottish on me or Gaelic or anything. So I was good.
So what's your best memory of the whole thing? Or is it hard to put into words?
It's hard to put into words, but if I was to pick, I guess my favorite, every time I went to a castle, this is my new favorite castle. This is my new favorite castle. I'd have to say Stirling Castle. That's the closest you're going to get to what you imagine when you think, knights and castles and things like that, and the historical value to it too. That was just probably my favorite part of the whole thing. But the whole journey was like I stepped into a storybook and just spent a whole week living a story. It was amazing. So.
Well, it sounds like you had just a wonderful, wonderful time.
Oh, I did. It was,
and it's like a once in a lifetime kind of a trip.
Yeah.
My son did answer my question. He has not been over there yet. He was going, but they postponed their trip.
Yeah, that's what we kept doing.
Things going on in their life because he's now married. And I do remember having a conversation with him and told him that him and I should go over as father and son because we're Scottish and go over and see some of it. It would be really a cool trip together.
Yeah, I would recommend doing it, let's see, near the end of May, before June. I probably went 2 weeks too late, and you can avoid most of the touristy crowds and stuff like that.
Well, it's kind of on, not that I have a major bucket list, but going back to the old country is kind of on my bucket list. Yeah. I mean, taking a cruise, I'd never been on a cruise ship before. Now that I've done that, I've been there, done that.
Yeah, this was definitely a bucket list item for me for sure.
Yeah, so it's kind of going to be on my list for a while, and I think I'm still pretty capable of making that kind of a trip, at least for another year or two. So we'll see what happens.
Right.
I do know that I'm getting old. I can feel it at times, but
yeah, we all are.
over there would be just a lot of fun. Well, you got some really great pictures. The best part is you got some really great memories too.
Yeah, it was. I rejuvenated was basically the word I used for coming back from that.
So did you bring any souvenirs back?
Oh well, my kilt was the big one for me.
Okay.
It's not a big fancy kilt, but I brought a kilt back. I also found a lot of my family pins and emblems and keychains. We could never find one at the Scottish Festival here, so I was able to pick up some of those for my family. And I got a really nice chess set for my dad. He travels the world with chess sets. So I got it's the Lewis chess set is what it's called. If you want to look that one up, it's a beautiful little chess set, and brought that back too.
Well, Oh, good. Very good. Well,
They don't sell swords over there, unfortunately. It's England.
Yeah.
They've stopped doing that. I would have loved to bring one back. But I'll
Yeah,
I'll have to make one. That's also on my bucket list. So
well, you have the ways and means to do that, but maybe we can figure out something that you can do similar to that when you come and work the blacksmith shop here.
yeah, maybe that'd be fun.
Yeah, very good. So let's see. Nightingale in Florida says that her bucket list includes Ireland, descended from Irish immigrants on her mother's side. Yep,
Yeah.
I don't blame you. That's a good one.
Yeah, Ireland would be great too. I'd love to visit Wales. Most of my family comes from Wales, so I'd like to go visit Wales at some point.
Well, when we were little, I don't think I see is Mayhem from Panama City on, Davey? Did he pop in yet?
I thought
I
he
don't
was.
think I saw him. We lived in England when we were little. Our father was stationed at a Bentwaters RAF in the 1960s, and we lived over there. So I don't really remember a whole lot of living in England. I remember a few bits and pieces, but it's now time 60 years later to go back. So it's on my bucket list. You're lucky you got to go and do that. I envy you for that, and you got some great pictures. It's really pretty cool.
Yeah,
and we appreciate you on the show to share it with all of our guests, because most of our guests, they like the old stuff too.
Thanks for letting me come on board. It was great being able to share it with someone.
Well, we appreciate it very much. Davey, what is next on our agenda? I'm looking for my script, and there it is. And it's This Week in Nautical History. Nope, This Week in History. Before you do, though, Davey, you can't read it, but ladies and gentlemen, this is the new Dick's Wings lunch menu. 12 items starting at $8.99. They got some amazing things for lunch. Different salads, quesadillas, half-pound burger, cheeseburger, in fact, wings, of course, plain old chicken salad. And I just made a deal with the owner of Dick's Wings. And if you have one of our coins, you can go into Dick's Wings and trade that coin for your first drink free on the house. And now you'll lose your coin, so we'll have to give you another one. He will be collecting the coins and giving them back to us. There is no limit. A lot of places, when they tell you get a free drink, they usually mean you get a draft beer or you get a well drink. I asked him, and he said, nope, whatever you want. Come in and get a drink. I am going to ask him to also see if we can't get our crew coins honored also. But for now, our podcast coins, you go to Dick's Wings, you get a free drink. We're hoping to spread that kind of fun throughout several different places in St. Augustine with our coins. So go to Dick's Wings. They're the biggest sponsor of our This Week in History. And there's a plug for them. Dick's Wings, This Week in History. Davey, go ahead.
Welcome to This Week in History, sponsored by our good friends at Dick's Wings Bar and Grill. Wings, salads, wraps, quesadillas, and more. No matter what your taste buds crave, they've got you covered. We begin This Week in History in the year 1374. Sudden outbreak of St. John's dance causes people in the streets of Aachen, Germany, to experience hallucinations and begin to jump and twitch uncontrollably until they collapse from exhaustion. 1731. Freemason and Mayor of Philadelphia, William Allen, is appointed Provincial Grand Master of Pennsylvania, the first and youngest Grand Master of the Grand Lodge of Pennsylvania. 1853. U.S. President Franklin Pierce signs the Gadsden Purchase, buying 29,600 square miles from Mexico for $10 million, now known as Southern Arizona and New Mexico. 1864. U.S. Civil War, Atlanta Campaign, Battle of Kennesaw Mountain, Georgia. Union General Sherman makes unsuccessful frontal attack on Confederate defense. 1876, Battle of Little Bighorn. U.S. 7th Cavalry under Brevet Major General George Armstrong Custer wiped out by Sioux and Cheyenne warriors led by Chiefs Crazy Horse and Sitting Bull in what has become famously known as Custer's Last Stand. 1916. Mary Pickford becomes the first female film star to get a $1 million contract. 1935. FDR orders a federal gold vault to be built at Fort Knox, Kentucky. 1942. Major General Dwight Eisenhower appointed commander of U.S. forces in Europe. 1950. North Korea invades South Korea, beginning the Korean War. 1951. First color TV broadcast. Arthur Godfrey hosts a musical variety special titled Premiere from CBS, New York City to a network of 5 East Coast cities. 1963, U.S. President John F. Kennedy gives his famous Ich bin in Berliner, intended to mean I am a Berliner, but may actually mean I am a donut, speech in West Berlin. 1964, blacks and whites riot over racial segregation in St. Augustine. 1965, first U.S. ground combat forces in Vietnam authorized by President Lyndon B. Johnson. 1966, Dark Shadows, American Gothic soap opera premieres on ABC TV. 1986, Jim Henson's fantasy film Labyrinth, written by Terry Jones, starring David Bowie and Jennifer Connelly, is released in the U.S. And finally, in 2023, U.S. Supreme Court rules 6-3 against the Biden administration's student debt forgiveness plan for 40 million students, saying the president overstepped his authority. And that was This Week in History.
Okay, very good. Very good. And as always, we like to have fun with our podcast. So it's now time for From the Desk of the Captain. And I always like to pick a subject that I can talk about and share thoughts and advice and thoughts on. So this week, original thoughts. Did you know that using music or artwork that you did not create at various levels of your social media can be considered theft? For most, that is not always the case, but if you are creating an advertisement for a public event, especially if you're trying to make money off of it, the background pictures you are using or the music you may have attached to that posting could be violating copyright laws. Yes, even if you are doing a charity event and you use background pictures that you copy off the internet and post off the internet, you can be crossing that line. Even photographs can be considered protected, and in the case of showing children in your photos, you can be crossing other lines there as well. It's always important to understand these things, and we here at the Captain's Quarters podcast learned some very valuable lessons when we first started. And now we pay monthly fees for music, pictures, and images that we use on the show. Some of them now are the property of this podcast, which we've paid for the licensing of. With computers, internet, social media, and various forms and apps that you can use of someone else's artistic talents can be the doorway. The use of someone else's artistic talents can be the doorway to many legal issues. And it is getting more and more difficult to know what is and isn't the right way to use artistic licensing. Just a little warning, AI is going to make this even more and more and more of a treacherous, confusing slope. And Davey and I have been experimenting with AI, and I believe Davey's had a piece of crew music and a podcast music. We've had a couple little miniature stories just to test it out. And it's still, I've had some conversations, it's still not sure that if you use AI to create something, do you actually own it? There are some arguments going on with this. I take this idea of where the line is being drawn when it comes to artistic ideas when creating a character or a magic trick or even an event. Even in the movies, some of the plots haven't changed for ages and people may have copied something, but to make it fresh or seemingly new, we must consider changes in the themes, the decor, the costume, and the scenes. A great example for some that if you know or not is "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" Anybody know what it's actually based on? Oliver, do you know what it's based on?
Oh, I do. I can't remember though. It's
The Odyssey of Homer.
It's the one.
Yep.
Yeah.
Basically, everything about the Odyssey of Homer has been upgraded or updated into "Oh Brother, Where Art Thou?" It's an interesting concept. It is also a great example of how you can use somebody else's idea, but you need to change it to your idea. I have created a few magic tricks in my time. Well, not the trick itself, but the presentation or the storyline of the trick. That presentation becomes mine. An example is my story of the 3 cannon fuses. Many of you have probably seen me do that. Now, the trick itself is not mine, but my presentation as a pirate, the cannon fuses, and the story, that's mine. Bob Carver won the IBM Originality Trophy in 1957 with that trick. And the judges had a hard time actually believing he was using sleight of hand and there was no gimmick involved in the trick, but alas, they were wrong. And then 10 years later in 1958, Gene Gordon is credited with the patter, that's usually the storyline that goes with the trick, and the name of the trick, To Professor's Nightmare. I do not take credit for the trick itself, but I do get credit for the storyline, my storyline as a pirate. It's mine. Nobody else can use it. They can try if they like, but it's mine. I also do take credit for something else. I didn't realize this, but the move or the sleight in the trick that makes the trick actually work, the sleight of hand in the trick that makes it work, well, I've had other magicians who've done the same trick, but have come to me after the show. They've been in my audience and come to me after the show, and they say they know exactly how the sleight is supposed to be done, but will come to me after the show and ask me, how the hell did you do it? Then ask if they might change their handling. This is flattering. It's also a true sign of professionalism that they want to borrow what you're doing. People that ask me, I have no problem with it. I'll give you a perfect story. I do a miser's dream in my show, but I do a miser's dream with children. And a miser's dream is pulling out all these coins out of the air and dropping them in a bucket. And I have a comedy routine that I do using 3 children. Now, I did that at a couple of shows in Tucson, Arizona, and a much more prominent magician who we became friends with, a much more prominent magician, he came to me and specifically asked if he could use my routine with a few slight variations. I was flattered that he asked me, and I obviously said yes. I have another routine that we do. It's the routine, it's not the trick, but it is a comedy version of putting a card up on the ceiling. I and my good friend T.A. Burrows used to just do the hell out of that trick and make fun of it and have a good time. But I found a magician using the exact same concept at another show in Vegas, and I sent them a letter and said, no, you can't do that. So even the creation or theme of events can have blurred lines, and the pillaging and or plundering of another successful event or party without giving credit or conversation is just plain unprofessional, and often the cause of unnecessary issues. The old phrase, ask forgiveness after, in the artistic world is still just plain unprofessional. But also, if you have a conversation with someone whose idea you like, but would like to capitalize a bit and change it to your persona or your character, you might find that asking creates a bond of support and helpfulness towards your event and the success of your event or your party or your persona. Attitude rather than an air of drama is more important because you didn't have an original thought, but choose to use someone else's. That is the drama. Even Captain Mayhem in the general image that I portray, I use it. It is protected. And of course, we all know one pirate, most copied for sure, the most copied pirate, and some have suffered the consequences. Be original, or at least be professional. That's what I'd like to share with you. On that note, that was, by the way, sponsored by Marco's Pizza. Do you want a good pizza? They've got great pizza, and I love their pizza. I never liked a vegetable pizza before in my life, and they make a vegetable pizza. It's really very good. And we will be helping them soon. Within the next couple of weeks, they will be opening up their second location over on State Road 16, and we're going to have some kind of a pizza pirate party on the weekend and have a good time. Now, let's see. Guests on deck, also sponsored by our good friends at Marco's Pizza. The 1st of July, which is next week, and I seriously made a mistake here, Bill with no last name. I don't know how I missed that, but my wife's childhood friend all the way from grade school is going to be running for Pima County Sheriff this year. And we thought we'd bring him on board and talk about sheriff things that go on in Southern Arizona and sheriff things that go on in St. Johns County. The July 8th episode, my son, William McRae, he will be joining us when we talk about Superman. And I do believe, Davey, if I'm right, isn't our good friend from Salt Lake, our Salt City Comics, going to be on that show with us too?
I believe so.
I believe so. Michael Lofresti, he has written a book called Sea Beasties, and longer than that, but for the sake of being quick about it, he will be on the show to talk about his book. July 22nd, Samuel Moon. It is also the celebration or the, let's see, what's the word I want to use here? The recognition of the veterans, the creation of the Veterans Administration. And Samuel Moon has started a pirate crew that is statewide that is for veterans to join and share their good times with pirating. The 29th is open. August 5th, we're doing a tribute to and a commemorative of the anniversary death of Marilyn Monroe. Mark Goodledge, he'll be joining me. He's a magician. I'm actually hoping to maybe add 1 or 2 other magicians like we did the last time when I had magicians on the show. We'll do a round table over on the poker table. Deborah and Jay Brusso, Parlay 8, will be joining us towards the middle of August. And then their season of their podcast starts up shortly thereafter. And Sheriff Hardwick has decided to join us on August 26th. All of September is still open. So I always like to tell everybody, if you have an event or you have something you want to share or you want to be a guest on the show, send us a message. Let us know what we can do for you or your events and advertise and help. You never know. Sometimes what you have will make good guest information. I'm trying to get my good lady friends from Tasting Tours to join us, and I'm hoping I can get them in September. I know that Scarlett is watching. I saw her on board, so I'm going to ask her right now. I think, Scarlett, we're going to make September 16th our Talk Like a Pirate episode, and your birthday is on September 19th. And you have been our guest every year for Talk Like a Pirate Day. If that works within your schedule, let me know so that we can put you on board again and put you on the guest list, because we might as well just keep the tradition up. You've been on the show every year because it's your birthday, and we love having you support our show. On that note, Davey, I think that's all the guests we have for now, and we're good to go. It is time for the reveal of Mini Mayhem's Joke of the Week. Let him have it. And you're already laughing.
Okay, it's time for the answer to the joke of the week. What's a pirate's favorite kind of exercise? The answer is plundering.
Oliver, don't
Oliver's laughing.
I'm
don't
laughing.
hurt you.
Are we not supposed to laugh?
No, you are.
Ladies and gentlemen, we can't have a good show without making sure that we are saying thank you to our guests, saying thank you to our supporters and our sponsors. So go ahead and play that thank you video, Davey.
The Captain's Quarters podcast is indeed a ship sailing the seas of the world, always in search of history, knowledge, and adventure. It takes a crew to run a ship, so we take this opportunity to thank those who help keep this ship afloat.
The cast and crew: Captain William Mayhem, Navigator Davy Longwood, Gunner Hellfire Henley, Cartographer Mandy Joe, the Powder Monkey, and Juan Cam.
Helping others gives a crew purpose. Our treasured charities that we support: Inc., investing in kids; the Humane Society of St. Johns County; Aelia's Acres, a no-kill animal rescue zone; and the Cadets of the St. Johns County Fire Department. The 4 major charities that we support, but there's always room for more.
You too can be part of the crew and support the show in many ways. Go to Patreon. A small monthly contribution as Powder Monkey or First Mate memberships, or a single contribution. PayPal or Venmo. Go to YouTube, hit the like and follow buttons to join our ranks and support the show. It does take a crew. Thank you.
Very good, Davey. Very good. There are the ways you can catch us, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, YouTube. Then it downloads to Spotify and Instagram. And you can listen to us on Stitcher, iHeart, CastBox, Apple Podcast, and Amazon Music. 8 different ways for you to catch up with our show. And we hope that you will do so. Sorry, I'm keep having these little pauses because I keep seeing things here. Denise asks, which Dick's Wings? The one on the Dick's Wings on US 1 over by the shores. Let's see. Does a reenactor or actor playing a real person infringe on that person or their heirs' rights? That's always a good question, Jim. I know that a reenactor. Well, let's just go with the Jack Sparrow thing. Disney has such a hold on their characters that you can get in trouble for certain usage of their characters if you're doing it for making money. So you have to be very careful. It's always best to ask on those things. I think there is one rule of thumb. I do know this. When it comes to music, copyrights fall to the wayside on music if the author of the music or the composer of the music has been dead for 75 years. So 75 years from the death of that. That means, like, for example, all the rock and roll songs are all copyrighted. You can't do anything with songs from the 50s, although we're probably at that time frame right now, but especially from the 60s, 70s, and 80s, without paying the copywriting fees. But it is why we can use some of the songs that are sea shanties that come from the 16 and 1700s, because there's no copyright on them. I would think that in some cases with actors or reenactors or people infringing on a person's family legacy, it would fall under the same thing. I do know that in a couple of the movies, for example, the working of Orson Welles, the history of Orson Welles, there were fees that had to be paid to the family to use certain aspects of that person's life. So I do think that it's a gray area. That's the easiest way to put it. It's a very gray area. Any other questions that I see? Oh, by the way, the cookie the most liked cookie that almost everybody had on there was chocolate chip, and you can't beat a good chocolate chip cookie with a glass of cold milk. That's my favorite. Very good. On that note, I think we should show our numbers, Davey. Are they any good this week?
I believe so.
Good job, Davey. And the numbers, we've surpassed the 1565 year of St. Augustine by 3 now. Very good. I'm always happy when we get to our numbers. There's our email, ladies and gentlemen, Captain's Quarters Podcast 21@gmail.com. If you have any questions, send them in to us. If you have any suggestions, send them in to us. If you just want to say hello and or figure out how you can get one of these coins, send us a message. We'll be getting a whole new group of these coins here shortly with the brand new logo on it. For now, though, I think our show has reached its point. As always, we always have a good show when we have a guest. And Oliver, your pictures were wonderful. I've seen a couple of other people that made some comments. Also, here's another one. I did not know this. Will the historian believes that the Lion King is based off of Hamlet.
That's true.
It is true. See? A theme, a story, but changed to something more modern. That's the way to do things. I like that. Very good. I don't see anything else. Great history video, Navigator. You got that? And I did see a couple of other people love this session, this show for tonight. So I'm sure it's because of all the great pictures we had of the old homeland. Very good. So before we sign off with what we always sign off with, Oliver, is there anything you'd like to say in closing for your part and your time?
No, thank you. Just thanks so much for having me on board. I love sharing this stuff. It's just great to be able to talk and be able to share all these wonderful things with people.
I want to know when we get to have Oliver here permanently.
Yeah, well, we'll talk.
Well, Oliver, we look forward to having you out here again in February. I'm sure that's probably the next time we will see you, if not before. But in February for Old City Pirate Day.
Yeah, I'll look forward to it.
And you'll be manning the blacksmith shop. So I look forward to that. We'll have some fun with that.
Yeah, it's a great time. I love it.
Good. Thanks, Oliver. It's like we went to Scotland with you. Absolutely right. Yep, very good.
Oh, good.
So, Davey, I have one last swig of cherry juice left. And how do we close our show?
Part of the podcast.
Part of the crew, always. We thank you all for being a part of our show, supporting and liking us on YouTube. Captain's Quarters Podcast. Till next Monday, we'll see you again. Aye.